The Girl Who Fooled the Gods, a character analysis of Vin from Mistborn. Chapter 1, The Artist's Perspective, Cupping the Divine. Hey everyone, today I'm breaking down the character of Vin Venture from Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, and I'm doing it while we walk through this piece I drew of her. Let's talk about the pose first. I chose to draw her at the Well of Ascension. You can see her here, kneeling, cupping her hands to grab liquid power of the well. I wanted to focus on that specific motion because it's so symbolic of her entire life. Vin is a character who spent her childhood literally begging or stealing for every scrap of food, and now here she is, reaching for the raw essence of a god. Notice the scale I'm using. Vin is tiny, she's barely 5 feet tall. I wanted the background and the power of the well to feel massive, almost overwhelming and mythical, because that's how her life felt. She was always this small, fragile thing caught between the gears of gods and kings. As I'd add the lighting to her hands, I want it to look like the light is almost too much for her to hold. It's a heavy moment, and I wanted the art to reflect that weight. Chapter 2, The Architect of Trauma, The Broken Bird. To really get Vin, you have to look at where she started. She's what we call a broken bird. Her early life wasn't just poor, it was a psychological horror story. Her mother was driven insane by the god Ruin and murdered Vin's baby sister right in front of her to create a hemorrhagic spike. Vin survived that, but she didn't escape unscathed. She grew up in thieving crews where being noticed meant being beaten or worse. That's why she's so small and mousy. She learned that invisibility was a survival skill. And then there's Reen, her brother. I'm drawing her with a lot of tension in her reflection of her shoulders for a reason. Reen beat her, sure, but he also drilled this mantra into her head. Anyone will betray you. For the first half of the series, Vin isn't just fighting Inquisitors. She's fighting that voice in her head. Even when she's surrounded by people who love her, she's looking for the exit. She's waiting for the knife in her back. That's the tragedy. She was powerful enough to kill a Lord Ruler, but she wasn't powerful enough to believe someone could actually love her for nothing in return. Chapter 3, The Mechanical Miracle, Why Vin is Different. Let's talk about the amazingness of her powers for a second. In the Mistborn world, you usually have to go through something traumatic, a snapping, to get your powers. Most people snap in their teens. Vin, she snapped while she was being born because the labor was so hard. This means she was using allomancy since she was an infant. She called it luck, while other Mistborns were learning from tutors and noble houses. Vin was using her powers instinctively just to survive the Luthadel slums. That bronze earring is actually her sister's death spike. It's what allowed her to pierce copper clouds, something no other Mistborn could do. She thought it was just a memento of her mother, but it was actually a parasitic tool the villain was using to track her. The fact that she took a literal mark of her trauma and unknowingly used it to become the most powerful seeker in history, that's just classic Vin. She takes what's broken and makes it dangerous. Chapter 4, The Knife and the Silk, The Duality of Valette. One of my favorite things about drawing Vin is the contrast between the ska side of her and the noble side. When she goes undercover as Lady Valette, she discovers something that she hates to admit. She likes it. She likes the silk dresses, she likes the music, and she likes the intellectual debates. But she feels so guilty about it. She constantly telling herself, don't forget the ash because you see a little silk. She feels like a fraud in both worlds. She's too noble for the street crews and too feral for the ballrooms. But the amazing thing about her arc is that she eventually stops trying to choose. She realizes she can be the girl who loves jewelry and the warrior who can take down an army. In this drawing, I tried to make her look both ethereal but grounded. She has the grace of a lady but the hands of a worker. She's the only person who can bridge those two worlds because she's lived the worst and best of both. Chapter 5, The Legacy of the Ascendant Warrior. So, I am putting the finishing touches on this, darkening the shadows in the water of the well to make that light in her hands really pop. Let's look at who Vin actually was. She wasn't just a hero because she had powers. She was a hero because of what she chose to do with a life that had given her every reason to be bitter. You look at her in this drawing and you see the Ascendant Warrior. But I want you to remember that under the mists and the magic, she was still that girl who used to hide in the corners of thieving dens. The amazing thing about her is that she never got her trauma. She didn't just wake up one day and decide to be confident. She fought her anxiety every single night. She fought the voices of her brother every time she hugged Eladin or trusted Kelsier. She's a masterpiece of a character because she proves that being broken doesn't mean you're useless. It just means you've been forged differently. Chapter 6. The Tragedy of Sacrifice. There's a real tragedy in where she ends up. She spent her whole life looking for a home, looking for a place where she doesn't have to fight, and right when she finds it, right when she finds love and a family, the world asks her to give it all up. In this moment, I've drawn cupping the essence of the well. She doesn't know the full cost yet, but she's willing to pay it. That's the amazingness of Vin Venture. She's a girl who was treated like trash by the world, but when that same world was dying, she was the only one with a soul strong enough to catch it before it fell. She's the knife that preservation needed, but she's also the hope that the ska needed. She's a character that reminds us that our past don't define your capacity for light. She carried ash of her childhood into the silk of her adulthood. She used both to save everyone. Chapter 7. The Conclusion. I hope this breakdown gave you a bit more insight into why I wanted to draw her this way. Capturing the specific moment of her cupping the well felt like the best way to show her transition from a survivor to a savior. If you look at the final piece now, you can see how the light from her hands is the only thing illuminating the darkness of the cavern. To me, that is Vin. She is the light in a world that was covered in ash for 1,000 years. Thank you for hanging out with me for these 10 or so minutes while I work through this. Whether you're a longtime fan of Mistborn or you're just discovering Vin for the first time, I think there's something we can take away from her story about trust, agency, and the power of a single person. Let me know what you think of this drawing in the comments and tell me what your favorite Vin moment was. Was it the headbutt? Was it the Colossus sword? Or was it just her finally finding a moment of peace? Thanks for watching, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next one.